As a therapist, I have heard horror stories from people who've been to a therapist.
My worst of the worst, just awful.
Don't get me wrong, there are many, many wonderful therapists out there doing awesome work. And let me say this first about therapy. It can be a life-changing experience. No one deserves to suffer. All of you deserve support and guidance in your life.
You're in therapy? I'm starting therapy tomorrow.
Being a therapist has been incredibly rewarding and fulfilling. I love being a part of a person's journey to personal growth. That being said, have you ever wondered what makes a good therapist? What are the signs you should look for, and what are red flags? And how can a therapist damage your relationship, your romantic relationship?
We were just a couple with a few problems. When we finished, I came to live on your couch!
This is a very personal and important topic for me. I hear so many stories about people being hurt by a therapist, and of course I hear wonderful stories about people being helped. This is why it is so important to know what to look for and what are the red flags. And I'm going to talk about all of this in today's video. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Pam. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a couples counselor. I've wanted to be a psychologist since I was a little girl. And in my innocence as a child, I assumed that all therapists were healers. But I have learned that they are not, and they can do damage. And this breaks my heart because it is often the case that it's the hardest thing to do is to walk into a therapist's office. So let's get started so this doesn't happen to you. When we make what is sometimes a very hard decision to see a therapist, we are usually feeling very vulnerable because we're hurting. And then we have to open up to a stranger. Opening up to a stranger may be hard for some and easier for others.
It's just hard to open up about my life.
That is why it is necessary to talk about the potential of a psychologist unintentionally, or, well, I don't want to say that they intentionally damage your relationship. Nonetheless, the damage can happen. So here, let's watch a video. This is a short little clip to show you what is not what I would say a good therapist. Let's watch.
The pressures, and I'm not judging them, I'm not labeling them, but they are destroying your potential. There are no more shenanigans, no more tomfoolery, no more ballyhoo.
You're right.
It's important to say that this person was court-ordered to go to counseling. No one wants to be told to go to counseling, so that's very delicate.
Yes, I do. Court-ordered counseling.
But the therapist basically reprimands him, treats him as if he's his parent. He makes no attempts. Oh, I don't think I said this was the first session. He makes no attempt to connect with him at all. I've actually worked with people who are court-ordered, and you can build a wonderful relationship with them. First, by simply validating how awful it is to be forced into counseling. So what does it look like when a therapist has a damaging impact on a relationship? So I was told a story by a couple who came to see me because they had been to a previous therapist and they needed help. So this story has been changed to protect the identity of the people. Nonetheless, it's a very important story. This couple that I'm referring to, they were both dealing with pressures of their demanding careers. They had different expectations about their future, and their connection was lacking and conflict was usually unresolved. So they decided to seek counseling. Not with me. This is the other therapist. And during the first few sessions, the therapist, and it was a male therapist, and I'm not that that matters. I'm not throwing male therapists under the bus.
I'm not throwing those guys under the bus.
I just want to give you the full picture. But this therapist seemed to side with the husband, applauding him for his career ambition and dedication to his work. And the wife, she wanted more quality time together. And the therapist told her that she was not being understanding of the demands of her husband's profession, and that she should adjust her expectations. And let me just stop right here and say that this should be decided between the husband and wife. It is not the therapist's place to decide this for them. The therapist can facilitate a conversation between the couple rather than imposing his or her own thoughts. I'm not suggesting that a therapist should not challenge a couple, but it always must come from a place of understanding. So in this example, that was not the case. The therapist created a narrative where the husband was a victim of his wife's unreasonable demands and made her feel like she was the problem. I did a video of the importance of choosing a therapist who supports both people at the same time. I'll link it below. The husband then, of course, began to view his wife as the sole cause of their issues, and things got worse for this couple. A therapist must come from a place of understanding both people with empathy, open communication, and mutual understanding. Not only does this help a couple, but it also role models what the couple can do for each other. The therapist is meant to provide a safe space to express your feelings and concerns.
I don't feel safe.
If you are singled out as the problem, you won't feel safe at all to express your feelings and concern. Fortunately, this couple saw another therapist, me, and they were able to repair their relationship. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, consider subscribing so I can build a wonderful community of people who are growth-oriented and we can all help each other. So let's talk about what to look for in a therapist, and I'll end the video with red flags. So first, let me show you a clip of a family therapy session. It's from the TV series This Is Us. And a little background is one of the characters, Kevin, has been in rehab, and this is the first time that the family has been in a therapy session with the therapist.
We don't talk about his drinking problem.
Because he beat it, Kev. It was just like a blip.
It's crazy that you even say that.
I'm crazy. You're here by court order, and I'm crazy.
Rebecca, do you have an opinion about your husband's alcoholism? Did you ever talk to your children about their father being an addict? Did you ever warn them that they would have the gene?
My children lost their father when they were 17. They didn't have their father at their high school graduation. Randall didn't have his father when his children were born. Kate will not have her father at her wedding. So they had 17 years of memories, and that's it. There won't be any new ones for the rest of their lives. So, no, I did not sit them down and color their memories of their father by talking about the one part of him that wasn't perfect. And you really do a disservice by calling my husband an addict, because he was so much more than that. Thank you.
This actually makes me angry. Those words that the therapist spoke to Rebecca, the mom, were the first words spoken to her. There was no relationship established, and the questions were blaming and accusatory and just downright cruel. The next clip that I'm going to show you is to simply show you the difference between a good therapist, what it looks like. Even though it's not a couple session, you'll still get the idea.
How are you? Where are you from in Southie?
I like what you've done with the place.
Oh, thanks.
Do you buy all these books retail, or do you send away for like a shrink kit that comes with all these volumes included?
Do you like books?
Yeah?
Do you read any of these books?
I don't know.
And one more. Here's a clip of a not-so-good therapist.
Well, I'm going on national television next week. I haven't even got time to tell you, much less talk to that raving loony in there. An absolute lunatic he is.
Let me say this. I would not say that this person did damage. However, how can you go to a therapist who is not interested in getting to know you? If you are working on relationships, why would you go to a therapist who does not invest in building a relationship? What kind of role modeling is that? This is what a good therapist looks like.
Oh, I read your book last night.
Oh, so you're the one.
Do you still counsel veterans?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Well, I gave it up when my wife got sick.
You ever wonder what your life would be like if you never met your wife?
What? Wonder if I'd be better off without her?
No, I'm not saying like
No.
better off. I didn't mean it like.
It's all right. It's an important question.
He's trying to build a relationship with him. This is most important. So, what should you look for in a therapist? The obvious thing to look for is credentials.
Ask your credentials.
You can ask if they specialize or have specific training in whatever it is that you're working on. I spent my entire doctoral program studying and learning everything that I could about relationships. I mean, not every therapist has to spend an entire program on the study of relationships, but I would want to know that they had some kind of training and experience to be able to be helpful to you. This may be obvious, but you want a therapist who is kind. I remember one time someone was leaving a counseling session with me and a new person was waiting in the waiting room. And the person waiting in the waiting room asked the person leaving my office if I was nice. That just goes to show you how frightening and vulnerable it is to walk into a therapist's office. Thankfully, the person who left my office really enjoyed sharing her positive experience with me. So you want a therapist who makes you feel heard and understood. I am always so touched when someone says to me, "You see me," or "You get me." Don't all of us want to be seen for who we are, with compassion and understanding? You want a therapist who is also open to feedback. You need to be able to share with them if you're upset with them, if they said something upsetting to you. Maybe they can clarify their meaning or simply acknowledge a mistake. Or maybe you want a therapist to adjust how they work with you. You know, sometimes a therapist needs a bit of a roadmap from you to guide them into how to best meet your need.
What do you need?
This is a beautiful way to build a trusting relationship. I've had people give me feedback in many ways, and I value it because I would never want someone to harbor any misunderstandings or bad feelings, ever. And I can't say enough about the importance of boundaries, while at the same time being caring and empathetic. Like a good example is self-disclosure. You don't want a therapist who spends so much time talking about themselves that it becomes their therapy. And a therapist should know how much self-disclosure makes you feel comfortable. I have some people who value my self-disclosure very much, while I have others who don't need it as much. Okay, so what are the red flags to look for? Well, for sure, lack of empathy, shaming you, judging you, ignoring your input, telling you what to do, making decisions for you. And let me just say that I've heard some crazy stories. I'm going to change this up a bit, but I had someone share with me that when they went to see a therapist about the loss of a pet, in the first session, the therapist told them that they could not possibly be this upset about losing a pet, that they must have been sexually abused.
First, I'd like to say, what the fudge?
I don't even know what to say to that. Huge red flag. Thankfully, she knew to leave. But even so, a therapist should never plant an idea in your head. Another red flag is over-pathologizing, meaning that they quickly diagnose you, and then they only see the diagnosis. They don't see you, the whole person.
But you don't see me.
And one red flag is telling you that your relationship won't work. I have heard this time and time again. I think that sometimes therapists may say this because they feel lost and they don't know what to do anymore. I think that being a therapist means that you stay with a couple through times of not always knowing what to do. I have had that happen, and if I stay with it, things do shift and move forward. A good therapist knows that you must learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and comfortable with not always knowing what to do, but if you stay with it, something will shift. And if it doesn't shift, then the couple knows themselves. It has to be their decisions, not the decision of the therapist.
No, you don't tell me what to do.
Remember, when you go to a couples therapist, you should feel completely supported as a couple, and both of you should feel understood. The more the therapist works to understand both of you, the more you can understand one another. And the same goes for individual therapy. You should feel that your therapist sees you, supports you, guides you, and yes, challenges you, but always in a compassionate and empathetic way. Like I said, therapy can be a wonderful and life-changing experience. Just make sure you take the time to find the right fit of a therapist that works for you. So thank you so much for watching. Have you had any bad experiences or good ones with a therapist? Share it with me so others can learn what to look for and what are the red flags that you might have discovered. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you again soon.